Hey everyone, hey wellness crew. Today it was just kind of laid on my heart a bit to talk a little bit about the difference between responding and reacting, specifically when we're communicating with other people. Um, this kind of involves a lot of different types of communication. This can involve in-person communication. This can involve being on a phone call. This can involve texting or, messaging online. And oftentimes what will happen is sometimes we'll find ourselves not intentionally or not even knowing that we're doing this, but we'll find ourselves reacting to other people rather than coming from a place of simply responding, of taking a moment to kind of take a deep breath and think about where this other person is coming from, and also kind of think about where do we want to come from with our response, kind of taking a moment to be a little bit more mindful and think about what do we want to project to this person, and are we willing to allow ourselves a moment to actually listen to what this other person is saying, or are we just reacting? Are we just thinking of the next thing that we're going to say? Are we even bothering to listen? Sometimes we get stuck in loops, get stuck in habits, and we're just in a place of defensiveness. We're just in a place of not wanting to be wrong, or not wanting to, well, really just not wanting to be wrong. We live in a very polarized world, and we oftentimes think that there is only a right or a wrong, and we don't think of the third, fourth, or fifth, and so many other points of view that are out there. And it's not always black and white. That's a very common thing. People will struggle with black and white thinking. And it doesn't always have to be that way. You don't always have to use that kind of thinking. That's a cognitive distortion, and you can definitely get out of it. So, when we are communicating with other people, especially when we're communicating with them in real life, in person, we can definitely pay attention to a lot of different cues. Hi, Anthony. We can definitely pay attention to their body language. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Grave. Hi, Al. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Thank you so much for the like, guys. Um, Hi, Jim. Uh, so we're not always thinking so much about paying attention to those kinds of things. Hi, I'm actually talking about the difference. Hi, John. I'm talking about the difference between responding versus reacting. Hi, Real. Um, and the difference really is just where we're coming from. Yeah, good afternoon. Here we go. So, hi, Thomas. Hi, Gummy. Um, okay. All right, so I'm going to focus a little bit more on the camera and a little bit less on the live chat for just a moment. But this is actually a really good example of choosing to be reactive or choosing to just respond. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we can always choose to react or respond. In the moment, it may not seem like that. In the moment, it may seem like someone's kind of goading us to react, or goading us to be more negative, or goading us to be more, I don't know, just kind of, want us to kind of come from a place of defensiveness, right? It may seem or feel that way. But just because it may seem or feel that way does not mean that that's the actual truth. We're not thinking about where that person is coming from. We're not thinking about their situation. And it's not always easy to pause. It's not always easy to pause and think about, where the other person is coming from or what the other person is thinking about. So when we are trying to come from a place of responding and coming from a place of, okay, we actually want some clear communication, we actually want to have a good conversation with another person, and we actually do want to engage with someone else on a real level and not just on a visceral level, then we do want to come from a place of response. So, what we want to try to do is pause. When a person is speaking, we really want to try to listen to what they're saying, not allow our thoughts and our feelings to get convoluted in what they're saying, not allow ourselves to get defensive with what someone is saying, but instead allow ourselves to just simply listen, not wait for our turn to speak, not wait for the next thing, that the next opportunity that we're going to have to say something. Thank you so much for the likes, everybody. I really appreciate it. It's not about that. It's about really having open communication, giving the other person the opportunity to say what they need to say, giving ourselves a little breather, right? Giving ourselves the opportunity to kind of take that in. And then instead of reacting to something that maybe we got a little defensive about, or instead of getting like clamored up and then bang, like trying to go in real quick with something that you want to say or a little thing, listen to what they were saying and then have a response. Now, this might not seem the easiest thing to do, right? Sometimes we have conversations that are a little bit more difficult than others, but sometimes we just have very visceral, topical conversations, very lighthearted. This isn't something that's super difficult, right? Mentally, so yeah, that's a really interesting point. What is that, Timo? That's a really interesting point. So it's not so much about mentally responding, but that's an interesting way to put it. But definitely not so much emotionally responding, right? Don't come from a place of like, oh, like from our body, right? Come from a place of logic. So I would say logically respond if you can, right? Come from a place of where it's a logical place, a place of calmness, a place of authority, a place of like, okay, and not so much from a place of coming from your body where you may feel as though, things are getting triggered or things are getting provoked, because most often all that is you. And a lot of people hate hearing that. A lot of people hate when I say that. A lot of people leave as soon as I say that. But quite honestly, when you're getting triggered or provoked, it's not really that other person, even though sometimes, yes, it does happen that the other person is trying to provoke you. But if you're allowing yourself to be provoked, it's it's you. It's you're allowing that to happen. So you want to just kind of keep that in mind. When you do develop the skills and the subset of skills that is required to not allow yourself to be provoked, and this takes a lot of practice, this takes a lot of inner work, this takes a lot of really getting to the core of whatever your wounds are, getting to the core of whatever it is that someone says to you that might seem just flippant, that might seem just like something that's so small and not egregious in any capacity, but it might be a big deal to you. You want to get to the core of why, or why that is. Where does it stem from? And a lot of people don't want to really do that work. And I understand that completely. I didn't want to do that work for years, and it took me about 2 or 3 years to really do the work that I needed to do in order to be the person that I feel comfortable being today. And it's not like, oh, I did 2 or 3 years of work and then I stopped. No, it's an everyday thing, it's an everyday practice. I'm not perfect every day. There's some days where I am reactionary. There's some days where I might be a little bit reactionary towards someone that's known me for a very long time, that knows my little buttons and my little triggers. And that's okay, but I still practice going back to responding. I still practice going back to, okay, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to choose to not take what's being said personally. I'm going to choose to not take this as someone trying to attack me. Because more often than not, you have to think about it from another person's perspective, right? Are you really that important? Like, to someone else's, scheme, right? A lot of people are involved in their own lives. They're the center of their own worlds. So more than likely they're really not trying to goad you, or they're really not trying to create anything. There are some people that are like that. I would say they're in the minority in my personal experience. Um, but it happens. It does happen. I'm not going to say that it doesn't. I will fully validate there are some people that are like that. And, you just have to choose, especially with those kinds of people. And also creating boundaries and deciding, okay, are these the kind of people that I want to even give my time to or my energy to? Is this even worth it? So taking a step back, pausing, deciding, is this person worth my time and my energy to respond to? Because I definitely don't want to react to them. Because if they are trying to goad you, if they are trying to elicit a reaction, why would you want to give them what they want? You know? What would be the purpose in that? You would just be giving them what they want. So it doesn't really serve a purpose. It doesn't really serve a purpose for you. You're just giving somebody else what they want, which kind of comes back to people pleasing. And that's how a lot of people can kind of fall back into that habit. I talk a lot about being a people pleaser for a really long period of my life. Always kind of bending over backwards, always kind of doing everything I could because I felt like I had to be liked, or I felt like I had to be accepted, or I felt like I had to be part of something, or I felt like I had to, always be serving others, even though it didn't serve me, or even though it wasn't to my benefit, it was to my detriment. And I never, for whatever reason, I just couldn't really see the difference of, okay, who are people worth keeping around and who are people who are not worth keeping around, who are not worth serving, who are ultimately hurting me. I couldn't really tell the difference at the time because I was just so focused on, okay, now I want everyone to like me and I want everyone to be, happy with me, and I want to make sure everyone else is happy. And I didn't value myself enough. And that went on for a really long time. So it is possible to get out of that. It is definitely possible to get out of it. It doesn't matter how long you've been in that type of experience. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. You can definitely get out of it. It just takes work. It just takes starting to value yourself. But it definitely comes also as well with working on your communication. Thank you so much for the likes. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. It definitely comes with working on your communication. It definitely comes with being able to communicate more effectively and focusing on responding. Focusing on, okay, when a person is finished speaking and you want to respond to them, taking that little breath, thinking about what they said, and simply responding to what they said. Not fighting what they said, not arguing against what they said, not becoming defensive against what they said, and also trying your hardest not to take what they said personally or like it was an attack against you, especially if they're talking about something that really had nothing to do with you, or maybe they're bringing up an example of something else or somebody else. But it's a lot easier for this to be done when you're talking to someone face to face. It's a lot more difficult to do this when you are on the phone or text messaging. Now, on the phone is easier than text messaging because at least on the phone you can kind of listen out for like the size or like those little like, change in breath patterns and things like that. You can kind of listen out for that, especially when you know someone really well and you know when someone's getting like frustrated or you just kind of know certain people, and some people you don't know. So you always want to take into account, how well do you know this person? How well have you been able to communicate with this person in the past? Are you overthinking this? Is this just how this person is? Take all of these things into account as well. And it seems like a lot at first. So just the most important thing always is just come from a place of, okay, it's not personal, take a breath, and simply respond to what they're saying. Now, if someone's coming at you with a vicious attack, if someone's coming at you with like a whole bunch of hate, if someone's coming at you with like a whole bunch of stuff, then politely say, I think at this moment, this conversation really isn't right for me to have with you right now. I would love to continue this at a later time. Or if you really just don't want to continue the conversation at a later time, just say, hey, I think we should pick this up later. I'm going to talk to you later. Don't even set up a specific time, just say later. If it seems like it's not going to go anywhere, if it seems like it's just going to be this constant barrage, then let it go. Don't give up your energy, don't give up your time to something, especially if the other person is the one that's being consistently reactive. If you have something that you're trying to share, if you have something that you're trying to convey to this person that is important, and you're constantly getting shut down, right? That means that that person is not being open and available to you. So you really want to, be open to that and listen for that as well. Whether even if you can't see it, if it's just on the phone, right? You definitely want to listen. You also want to listen to other things too, like are they giving you their full attention? That's a really simple one. Is the person you're communicating with giving you their full attention? Now, when it's face to face, that's usually pretty easy to tell. I don't say always go by eye contact because some people have a really, especially these days for whatever reason, maybe it's a confidence thing, maybe it's a whatever thing. Some people have a difficult time with eye contact. So I wouldn't say that just because someone's looking down or just because somebody is, seeming to not be fully engaged with their eyes, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not giving you their full attention. They just might be a little bit shy or they might be a little bit uncomfortable with eye contact. If they're giving you none, though, yeah, that might be a sign of they're not really engaged in this, or maybe they are having certain feelings of feeling like, oh, their own their own perception is getting in their own head and they're feeling a certain type of way. But you can't change how another person feels. You can't change how another person takes what you're saying. All you can do is try to be as effective of a communicator as you possibly can be. That's really all you can do. Is try to be as warm as you can, try to be as uplifting as you can, right? Even when it comes to serious topics, even when it comes to things that, are important to talk about, even when it comes to things that are difficult to talk about, to try to be as discerning as possible, to try to be as open as possible but discerning as possible, really listening in for little clues of, okay, are they engaged in this? Is this someone worth my time and energy? you know is this conversation going anywhere? Doing little kind of checks every few minutes, like, okay, where is this leading to, where is this going? Is this worth my time and my energy? Not because you're a selfish person, but simply because your time and your energy are worth a lot. Right? You're a valuable person, and I don't want you to forget that in any capacity. And I also want you to see this other person as a valuable person as well. It's just maybe at this point in time, they're reactionary, or maybe even at this point in time, you're reactionary and you're having a difficult time moving to being more in the responsive realm. And that's okay. Recognizing that is much more important than jumping into a conversation that you are not ready for, because then it's only going to lead to much more negative outcomes, and it's only going to lead to much more negative interactions in the future, because they're not going to forget that, you're not going to forget that, and it's like, oh, we just said all these things, and I know we didn't really mean to say them, or I hope we didn't really mean to say them, but we said them. And you can't exactly take stuff back. Of course you can forgive people, of course you can come from a place of forgiveness, of course other people can come from a place of forgiveness, but there's no guarantee. Like, there's no guarantee. So you can definitely always put things out there, right? But you can't always swallow that stuff back in. Just definitely want to say that. You can't always, put the genie back in the bottle. Once you've said something, you've said something. So try not to come from a place of regret, right? That's a really big reason why you want to be responsive. That's a big reason why you want to come from a place of responding versus coming from a place of being reactionary. But again, it's really easy, especially in the world that we live in, especially with the kinds of things that we do, especially with how the internet is, especially when we're on things like Reddit or other platforms, even sometimes YouTube, right? It's about wanting to have, silly comments on live streams or wanting to, just put some stuff out there because maybe to you it's funny. Or maybe to you, you want to elicit a reaction. You don't want to elicit a response. You want to elicit a reaction. That could be for a plethora of reasons. It could be for a whole bunch of different reasons. But it's one thing you just want to think about, right? You can come from a place of wanting to have reactions. But if you want to have a real dialogue, if you want to engage in a serious dialogue, then what you really want is responsiveness. What you really want is responsiveness on both levels. And if that's something that's possible to achieve, then great. So, always starting off with just a simple pause, just a simple breather, in and out, making sure that you're listening and responding appropriately. So, what does responding appropriately mean? That means that you are answering a question. That means that you are potentially repeating what the person just said, just so that way there's some clarity. So that way you can show that you were listening to what they said. And then maybe saying, may I ask a question? Or, hey, I just want to clarify this. Did I understand this correctly? Or saying, hey, this brought up something to me. Is this something that goes along with what you were saying? Something along those lines, right? Always trying to stay on topic and not trying to kind of go off topic yet, even if you're curious about something, or maybe like the person is taking a while to get to the point of the conversation, perhaps, because I know that this happens a lot. People like to meander. People really like to meander, especially when like there is a need for a more serious type of conversation. Um, when people have, had maybe an argument or a fight, and you'll find that there's one person that's kind of like meandering along, not really wanting to engage in the conversation. And you're like, how the hell do I get this person to get into the conversation? Like, how do I get them just to jump in? You can't control another person's actions. You can't really control like what they're going to do or what they're going to say. So it's just having the patience, right? That's a part of that pause. That's a part of that deep breath. It's understanding that, all right, this patience has to come from me, and I can attempt to guide this conversation to where it ultimately needs to go. But that's the absolute most I can do. And if the other person isn't engaged on the same level that I am, they're not going to get there. Or they don't want to get there. They simply don't want to get there. And, it's kind of like, well, that seems like a waste of my time and my energy. So give it a time limit. Give it a time limit. Simply give this conversation a time limit, whatever it may be for you. Let's say that there was something that maybe there was an argument, or maybe there was a disagreement, or maybe there was um, just something that was uncomfortable, right? And you want to talk about it. And the other person just seems to kind of be tiptoeing around it. And it's annoying you, but you don't want to come from a place of reaction. You want to come from a place of just being responsive to the person, of just simply responding and being in a place of just engaging with the person. Give it a time limit. If that person is not within that time limit, if this is not going where it needs to go, you can simply end the conversation. Texting, I find, is, again, like I said earlier, probably the most difficult way to communicate. And here's why. You have no idea You have no idea what the other person means. It's really hard to infer meaning. It's really hard to infer sarcasm. It's really hard to infer humor. You have to really know the person. You also have to be incredibly self confident. And you also have to be willing to not over analyze every little thing that's being told to you in a text message. And this is difficult for some of my clients. This is difficult for a lot of people in general, for a lot of people that I know. Um, a lot of people that I talk to, they just seem to be like, when people are texting me, I have the hardest time because I end up sounding like I'm being reactionary because I just don't know what certain things mean, or I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to tell me. I'm not sure if they're being a jerk or if they're being nice, or I don't know what they mean. So, this tends to happen a lot when you have a friend or a partner or someone who is a bit of a jokester, someone who relies a lot on sarcasm and relies a lot on humor. That happens a lot. So, things will get lost in communication simply because you can't hear their tone. You can't tell like exactly what they're saying. They don't always put JK, or they won't always put, something to kind of, say, hey, like I'm just joking around, or I'm being sarcastic. Um, you kind of have to know the person and really know how they text. Well, in the beginning of a relationship, or in the beginning of, knowing someone, I always suggest try to have as many conversations as you can face to face or over the phone, right? So that way you kind of get to know the person a little bit better that way. So you get a hint of what their natural tone is, of what their natural like vibe is versus over text. Now you can get to, know someone, and you can get to further grow your relationship through text. Obviously, we all text all the time. I mean, this is something that is just because of convenience. To be honest with you, it has just come up simply because of convenience. Um, but you know, having a serious conversation through text is probably not something I'm going to suggest that you do anyways. But some people like to do it, so that's why I'm going to dive a little bit into it. The biggest thing, just don't react over text. If someone says something that's a little bit short to you, the biggest thing that comes up for a lot of people when they're talking to me, they're like, I don't know what to do when someone says K. Like, why don't they say okay? Or why don't they say, something a little bit more elaborate? I feel like when someone texts me K, they're pissed at me. And I'm like, yeah. Sometimes I'm kind of like torn on that one, because I'm like, it does kind of seem like the most like shortest form of something someone can text you, like the least amount of energy, like the least amount of time that they can possibly spend to text you something. I don't necessarily equate it with them being mad. I just more equate it with like, maybe they're busy, or maybe something's come up, or they may just not be wanting to give you a lot of time and energy in that moment. It doesn't mean that you're not a valuable person to them. It just may be that in that moment, they've forgotten your value, sweetheart. So keep that in mind, keep that in mind when you're getting the K, you know. Or if you're having a dialogue back and forth and you get the K, and then you respond because you're being reactionary, K, yeah, that's being reactionary. If y'all are actively engaged in a conversation and there's just K's going back and forth, like, come on. That's just being reactionary. That's all that is. Um, the other thing too is, again, when it comes, let me kind of bring it back around to sense of humor and things like that. For some people, maybe your jokes are not going to hit the best through text. Okay. That's the great thing about voice notes. I always say if you can send a voice note when you want to be funny, if you possibly can, think about sending a voice note. Think about sending something that actually has your voice. That way you can show your inflection, you can show your tone, you can show, the whole thing and not just the words, right? Um I just think it's an easier thing to do, right? You're not having to make a phone call, but yes, you are recording your voice so the other person kind of knows like where you're coming from. It will save a lot of miscommunication for sure, especially when, you're a funny person or you think you're a funny person or both people think they're funny people. But sometimes a joke will just land wrong or sometimes the humor will just land wrong. A really big saver will be just using a voice note. um, so yeah, definitely though, when it comes to being reactionary, what we're talking about is responding from our emotions, which is something that Timo said in a very great way. It's not responding logically. It's not responding from a logical place. It's more responding emotionally. It's more responding from a place of potentially maybe being hurt or potentially being triggered, which again, and this is unpopular and people hate when I say this, but this is something that you yourself can control. It may not seem like it, it may feel icky to even think of it like that, but this is all something that you can control. Even if someone is intentionally trying to trigger you, this is all something within your control. You can control the trigger. You can decide after doing a lot of work and finding out what the core issue is, what that core wound is, you can figure out, okay, this is why that's bothering me. I don't want this to bother me anymore. I don't want this to be wasting all this energy anymore. I really don't. And you can choose to let that go. It's not that fast, it's not that easy, but it definitely is that simple. You just have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to go through that process. And the first step is accepting that you control what triggers you. And that's not fun to do, and a lot of us don't like to do that, and a lot of us want to kind of be victims in that situation, which a lot of people don't like to hear that either. But when you are able to take responsibility, when you're able to accept that you're the one that's in control of your life and you're the one that's in control of and I'm going to get to a point in 1 second before someone tries to abuse what I'm saying. um when you can understand that you're the one that's in control of your life, you're the one that can be in control of your emotions, no matter what you may be dealing with. I'll put it that way. Um, you can choose. We all make choices, and some people may have it harder than others with certain choices that they're making. Some people may be affected by certain things that may make it more difficult, but you still can find the right path. You just can't give up, right? There's no point in giving up. You have to just keep on going. You have to just keep on going and don't allow yourself to be a victim, right? That's the biggest thing. Don't allow yourself to be a victim and don't allow yourself to continually fall under that. Now, thank you so much. That is so kind. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. But what I will say is I don't want that to be abused by people that are intentionally trying to consistently trigger people. So, if you know people that are consistently attempting to trigger you, and then they come back and say, "Oh, well, I saw this girl on a live stream." Oh my goodness, thank you so much. You are so kind. Thank you, Brian. Um, if you have someone that comes up to you and is like, "Well, I saw this girl on this live stream who's a wellness coach, and she was saying that that you aren't a victim, that you need to take responsibility for all of your own actions. Um, so you're not a victim if I'm intentionally trying to, harm you or bother you." That's not what I'm saying in any capacity. So before that gets started, no, no. If you're trying to cause somebody else harm, thank you so much, Brian. Oh my goodness. If you're intentionally trying to cause somebody harm, you have a problem. You definitely have a problem, but it stems from a wound. It stems from some type of wound that you developed either as a child or a teenager, and it's something that you need to work on. Will you work on it? I don't know. That's not up to me, that's up to you. But every time that we have found, or we have seen, or we have experienced somebody that is consistently trying to really just like bother us or really just like hurt us. Hi, Derek. Every time that we've experienced these kinds of things, it's because they have their own trauma, or they have their own past, or they have their own, reason, whether it's, valid or not, they have constructed in their mind their own reason of why they're doing this. More than likely, it's because they're triggered by you. And when you think about it that way, it's like, wait, what do you mean? They're trying to trigger you because you trigger them. Which is why really in this whole thing, no one is really a victim. It's just some people are a little bit more mature about it than others are. Right? I don't take Oh, there's so much being said that I didn't see. Oh my goodness. So there's just so much that will happen, that will occur, that will go down, and it's just um they're dealing with probably something similar, or maybe you remind them of something from their past. That doesn't mean it's your fault though. But at the same time, outside of like constantly bullying you, outside of like constantly, like actually trying to cause you harm and actually trying to do things. Yes, Sam, I'm sorry. It was stuck for a really long time, so I didn't see the chat for the longest time. It was insane. Hi, Jay. That's so cool. You're in Newport. That's awesome. Um, so there is, and Brian, thank you so much. I really appreciate that today. Thank you very much. Um, so outside of like someone like actually like trying to victimize you and actually trying to like intentionally hurt you and all that, like if it comes to like some serious stuff, then by all means, yes, you are being victimized. I just say as much of the time as you can, try not to see yourself through the lens of perception. I'll put it this way: through the lens of perception as a victim, right? Just try your best. Try as much as you can to take accountability for things, but also know that there are certain situations and certain things that are definitely not your fault. Definitely things that you did not cause. Absolutely, Michael. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say. It's nice to see you too, Zach. Hey, Cambro. Thank you so much, Zach. I appreciate that. Well, I would say that in my personal life, uh, Chester, I've seen some people in my life get railroaded in really negative ways because of things that came up. And it wasn't so much because they were playing a victim card, it was more because they were playing a lying card. So, this lying card, obviously, that's not a way to communicate. That's a way to just tarnish someone's reputation for potentially life, right? And they made lives of some people that I care very dearly about super difficult for no reason. So, no, Zach, I'm a wellness coach, so that's my main source of income. Thank you, Michael. People love Pokemon. That's so funny. Yeah, and Chester, that's just what it is. It's better to be honest about certain things. It's better to be honest about all things, honestly. Um, with a with someone that you can trust, with people that you can trust, obviously. I don't condone lying, but being someone that's a parent, I do condone um, not spilling every single detail of absolutely everything. I think that you do have to have some form of moderation when it comes to certain subsets of people, whether it's because of their age or because of their intellectual understanding or because of their maturity or because of the demographic or because of whatever it may be. Hi, Joshua. Yes, I actually have yoga videos on my channel that you can check out. Yeah. I've been in coaching since I was about 19 years old. I'm 36 now. So when it comes to wellness coaching, it's been a lot about just being a coach all that time and having a lot of life experience, having a lot of just overall overwhelming experience. And wellness coaching does not require certification. However, I have gone through multiple classes and things like that. It is not to in any way be in replacement of a therapist or a doctor or anything like that. It's just more of something that is supplementary, and that's really more what it's for. It's not to take the place of any type of actual doctor in any capacity. It's like having a cheerleader. Having someone that will keep you in line when you feel like you can't be kept in line, or having someone to help motivate you, or having someone to help you with goals and things like that on a more frequent basis than you would be able to maybe see someone that isn't. Hi, Two Fly. No, I don't do therapy. I do coaching sessions. But my email is on the description of my channel. You can always reach out to me there, and we can definitely schedule a free assessment. Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Sam. Yeah, I was just kind of using that as a flippant example. It's not exactly like being a cheerleader. It's more in depth than that for sure. Um, Michael, yeah. So sometimes that tends to be the feeling of only children. They're just used to kind of having their own space a lot of times. So when it comes to sharing space, when it comes to sharing time, when it comes to sharing in general, they have a lot of difficulty sometimes when it comes to relationships and things like that. So you are definitely not alone. This is something that is quite common. Well, it is my business email. Thanks. I'd appreciate if you don't do that. Do you like the cobra pose? I think I renamed that one in my videos. I like renamed some of my video stuff. I mean, video stuff. Some of the yoga poses in my videos. So in my head, it's like, wait, which one's Cobra again? Um, I definitely do it in my videos for sure, but I think I renamed it to hovering, if I'm not mistaken. So on what subject's that? Hi, Joe. Thank you every day. You're welcome, Brian. I'm not sure, but thank you. Thank you as well. Hi, Nick. Um, Relationship advice. Yeah, that's something that kind of tends to happen a lot. That's something that I coach to a lot as well. Oh, thank you so much, Brian. It's just something that comes up a lot, for a lot of different reasons for a lot of different people, especially now. Um, I think that with the because when I was growing up as a kid, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have electronics. I didn't have all that stuff. I'm 36. So I got my first phone, I think I was like 14, and we didn't have the ability to send photos and videos and stuff yet. So, we didn't have all that stuff. So I feel that now that the newer generations have that ability, and you can kind of do a lot more stuff. Yeah, exactly. Some people are like, wait, what? um, you know, it's kind of hindered things a bit. It's kind of made things a little bit more difficult, I feel like, for younger generations. And then for older generations wanting to be able to use this kind of stuff. Okay, Zach. Yeah, for sure. My email is on my channel description. So if you just want to send me an email, I can definitely respond to it, and we can set up a one-on-one consultation. That's absolutely free. It's just an assessment, and I just kind of get a little bit of a feel for kind of what's going on, and I can let you know if I would be the right person to help you out or not. There are some issues and stuff like that that I do say, hey, you might need someone that's, um, a higher level of care than I can provide. So it just kind of depends on each thing. But VHS, exactly. VHS was like that was almost like the ultimate piracy when you think about it. Like now it wouldn't matter because now everyone thinks VHS is a movie or a series of horror movies. But no, VHS was something that we used to record NFL games and things like that. You'll only see it on MySpace. Yes, MySpace. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that was taken down. I had such embarrassing things on there. Um, but you could have music and things like that. People are like, bring it back. I'm like, yeah, Tom was your friend. Tom really was your friend. Yeah. I haven't been watching the latest seasons though, or the latest season. I don't really watch a lot of like super. I try to be careful with what I consume, and I highly encourage everybody to be careful with what they consume. To fly, this is a really interesting question. So, what I'm going to encourage you, thank you so much, Zach. I appreciate that. So, what I'm going to encourage you to do is to not generalize, right? So, in my specific situation, I actually did the opposite of that, and I didn't do that. And I think that sometimes when we create a generalization, especially with something that's such a difficult topic like that, um, we um, the best thing to do is to try to not generalize something like that. If that is something that you personally are experiencing, I am very sorry for you. I don't know what your situation is, but what I will say is that it's not easy. It's a very difficult thing for both parties, for the kids. And I think that taking away a parent if they are if you're removing a parent from a situation just because you can, right? The legal system is a very interesting system, the way that it works out sometimes. Um, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, It's hard. It's a hard thing to experience. It's a hard thing to go through. It's a hard thing to flesh through. What I will say is that attempting to see things best as you can from her perspective as well as your perspective, which may not be easy right now, especially if it's heated and difficult. Um, Maybe you need to take some time from it for a second. But if it's something that you feel like you can, hi Mark, if it's something that you feel like you can, try to look at it, try to spend some time thinking about it and contemplating on it, um, and trying to find forgiveness. Honestly, just trying to find forgiveness, being able to focus on giving your children the safest and most loving situation that they can possibly have, and really trying to not create tension as best as you can, um, in whatever way that happens. I can only see so much because I don't have my glasses on. I do apologize. I'm so sorry. But yeah, you're right, Sam. I have sandals on. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Zach. Exactly, Brian. 3 hours. Yeah. I mean, as long as the focus can just kind of be on, the kids, um, that's really all you can do. You can't control another person's actions. And again, this is where a lot of the work, right? Where coming from a place of being reactionary versus responding to stuff. That's where a lot of this can really come into play for you and can really be helpful in the communication aspect. So, uh, Jesse, originally it was about the difference between being reactionary and being responsive in communication. Yeah. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing that to my attention. You were right. I just couldn't keep up with everything, but I just need my glasses. And I always feel like I look so silly when I'm looking in through, like trying to look up real close. I feel kind of dumb. That's my own insecurity. So, absolutely. Thank you so much, Zach. You take care. So yeah, but yeah, so learning to find ways to be able to respond more versus okay. Bye, Zach. So looking for ways to respond more versus reacting to things, right? Looking for ways to be able to work on our communication skills, looking for ways to not allow things that people say or do to trigger us or to make us upset, even if that may be their intention, even if that may be what they're aiming for. It's just choosing to not allow that to happen. It's choosing to pause, take a breath. You can feel free to acknowledge certain things, or you can feel free not to, right? It all depends. And you have to understand that with certain things, you have to just kind of make the choice and make the decision like, okay, um, when you do give acknowledgement, when you do give attention, when you do give your energy and your time to certain things and to certain people, um, what you're doing is kind of letting that person think that they deserve that attention and that energy. And maybe they don't. So you just have to kind of think about that. Yeah, you can pause for 3 seconds if you want to. For some people, though, it may seem a little bit long. So even if it's just a quick breath, even if it's just like, okay, I'm going to recalibrate for a second, it can be a quick look down. It can be just a moment of reflection. It doesn't have to be timed. It can be if that works best for you. Whatever works best for you, in all honesty, that is what's going to be the golden ticket. Whatever works best for you. Right. You can be the observer. You can try to third party this out. Whatever you can possibly do, that's going to be ideal. However, it's just in certain situations, you just have to understand the biggest thing is that you just cannot control the other person. You can't control what they're going to say, what they're going to do. You can, again, you can, like I said before, you can definitely try to steer the conversation. Thank you, Brian. You can definitely try to steer the conversation to getting, on point if they need. Um, if they kind of need a reminder of what was intended to talk about, it might be for my lipstick. Whoops. Um, but outside of that, you can't control where the conversation is going to go. You just have to try your best to be as open-hearted and be authentically who you are and give that person a chance. And then if it's just not going the way that it needs to go, or if it seems like there's a lot of abuse and a lot of harm kind of coming towards you, if they themselves are being very reactionary towards everything that you're saying, kind of like, okay, well, this just doesn't seem to be going in a very productive direction. I think maybe we should talk at a different time. Thank you so much for giving me your time today. And then click, and then, or get off the phone, or however it is that you're communicating. Again, texting is probably the most difficult way, and it creates a lot of, yeah, I just like wearing one. um, it's just one of those things where it is lost my place because that comment got me. On a wood block. um I no longer have my personal trainer license. I also no longer have, or not my license, but my certification. And I also no longer have my yoga certification as active. So because of that, I don't want to answer something that I wouldn't be 100% about. Try to avoid lawsuits. So, unlike a lot of people on YouTube who will answer a plethora of things and things on nutrition and things on vitamins and stuff like that, I try to kind of steer away from doing all of that. So, I just don't. I and I've never used a wooden block before. I've always used foam. I am 36 years old. Mhm. But it's about that time. I probably have about a minute and 10 seconds. Wow, hi from Scotland. I don't know who Dana Bash is. I have a partner. Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye, Josh. I'm not sure. I haven't tested it in a long time, but that's a really interesting question. I don't really think that's important. I don't think that's an important question to answer. I think weight isn't super important. Thank you so much, Colin. Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I am so grateful to everybody who joined me on today's live stream. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join one of the membership tiers as it is popping off. And I will see y'all on the next video or live stream. Thank you so much. Sorry I'm going, guys. Be well, stay wild as well.